Okay, one of the very popular functions in Excel is called the VLOOKUP, and it's a lookup function. Okay, and basically it's just used to look up a value within a table array or a range. Okay, let me make this centered. Okay, say we just have a simple table like this where we have names, subjects, and then scores. Okay, now if I were gonna look up Jessica and what she scored in, say, English, right? It's 94. Now this is a very simple table, and as much as possible, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. And we could have a more complex table where we have thousands of rows and many other columns, and of course you can't be scanning through manually, and that's where these functions help us with precision to get the values we're looking for. Okay, but the main thing is just having a conceptual understanding of the function, and that's what I'm trying to deliver by this video. Okay, now the VLOOKUP takes basically four arguments. Okay, as we can see here, the lookup value, which is what you are looking up. In this case, we're going to be looking at lookup value is going to be the names, because we're going to see what each person scored in different subjects. Okay, now the table array now is this entire array here. Okay, where we have the subjects, the scores, the names. Okay, that's the table array. Now the third argument is called the column index. Now what's the column index? What does it mean? It means, for example, if I were searching Mary and what she got in English. Okay, now the column index refers to the index of where English is. Okay, of the column English. Okay, with respect to where I started my selection from. Okay, this is very important. I started my selection from here, for example, name. Okay, this is the first column, this is the second, third, fourth. So if I were looking at English, it would be the fifth column. Now the last argument here is called range lookup. It's basically a boolean. By boolean I mean true or false. Okay, you can take on any of them. Okay, so let's just take a simple case. For example, we want to know what Aubrey, or want to look up what Aubrey scored in maths, for example. Okay, so I entered the name, okay, Aubrey, and then maths. All right, cool. And then we're going to enter the simple VLOOKUP. Okay, now the first argument is the lookup value, which is Aubrey, the name. Next argument is the table array, which is everything here. I might decide to lock it or not. We're not moving it, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, and then the third argument is the column index. Now the column index is where does maths, since we're looking at maths, where does it lie as in the column with respect to where we're starting from the first column, which is name. So it's 1 2 3 4, so it's the fourth column. So our column index number here will be 4. Okay, and then the range lookup, this one returns a boolean. Okay, this one is either, it's a boolean value we select here, so we're going to use false because we want an exact match, not an approximate match. I'm going to be explaining in details, okay, scenarios where you have to use an approximate match, or how you can do a VLOOKUP or a search with a wild card, you know, when we don't have an exact match for what we're looking up. Okay, but we have like an approximate match. That will be in subsequent videos. Well, in this video I just want you to have a concept of how this function works, and that's why I'm using a very simple table just for you to understand. Okay, and then we hit enter. Okay, so we see that we get 98. So if we check Aubrey and what he scored in maths, we can see that it's actually 98. Okay, but this formula is in no way dynamic. What if you wanted to check for English. Notice the value doesn't change to 70, so this isn't dynamic at all, and that's because we didn't make reference to this. Okay, but I want us to do something more dynamic, okay, such that when we select a name and a subject, so we select a name and a subject, the score pops up here, okay, automatically. We don't have to start checking or start tweaking or changing. Okay, now how can we incorporate a list into a cell? The one way you can do that is using Excel's data validation. Now, where can you get data validation from? Under the data ribbon, under data tools. Now, you might not see it like this. Now, depending on your version of Microsoft Excel, I'm using Office 365, so I don't know what version you might be using, but it's pretty much the same thing. Just under data, look for data tools and search for data validation. Okay, now we select list, and then the source is of course where the list we want. Okay, and then we want names here. Okay, and then we simply push enter. Okay, and that's it. So we can see this little drop down here, and then when we select it, we can see the names that we want: James, John. Okay, let's just leave it at Aubrey. Let's try to match what we had in the listening. For the subject, we can do the same thing: data validation, and then we create another list, and then of course, but this time our list is from here, economics. Name is not a list of subject. Name is not in the list of one of the subjects, so we start from here, and then yeah, up to biology, and then enter. Okay, so we also see the small drop down here, and we can select different subjects, but for consistency, let's just select maths. Okay, now we're going to use the VLOOKUP again. Okay, VLOOKUP. What are we looking up? Aubrey. Where? Within the table array here. Okay, and the column index for maths. I mean, when we start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we've said it's 4. Okay, and then it's an exact match, so it's false. All right, now we close parenthesis, press enter, we get the same thing. Okay, but it's still not changing. Why? Now that's because we did not incorporate this into our function. Okay, and we hard coded with this 4 that is here. Okay, how can we do it better? Now Excel has a function called the match function. It's also a lookup function. Now how does this help us? The match function helps us to get the column index for maths by looking at where does maths lie within this column array. Okay, so if we're searching for maths, because it returns the ordinal position of maths, so it'll be with respect to this 6 columns, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, so it should return 4. Okay, and that will help us. So instead of hard coding this 4 here, we're going to use a function as an argument within this VLOOKUP function, okay, to make it dynamic. Okay, but first let's work out the match function. So we do equals to match. All right, still similar to this. The first argument, let me move the screen tip so you can see it's better. First argument is the lookup value. Okay, now the lookup value is the subject here, maths. Okay, now which array are we looking up the subjects on? Okay, all of this. Remember that I'm selecting from name in this case. Okay, and that's because in our table array we're selecting from here. Our table array started from name. That's the reason why I'm selecting from here. Okay, don't get confused. And then I put a comma. Now we can see less than, but we want an exact match. Okay, so 0, and then we close brackets. Now we can see it returns 4, just like we said, because it's going to return the position. If we change this, because we're referencing this column to economics, it returns 2 because economics is in second position. If we change this to English, it returns 5 because with the match, you're matching where English is in this column array. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's take it back to maths. Okay, now instead of hard coding within this, okay, so we're going to step into this VLOOKUP function. I pressed F2. If you want to edit within a cell, just press F2. You don't have to go to this command line here. Just press F2 and then you can edit within the cell. Okay, so now we're going to edit this column index. So this is where we are now. Now instead of hard coding with a for, because that's where maths belongs to, we're going to use the match function. Okay, now with the match function, we're going to match this now within this particular array. Okay, and yeah, and then it's going to be an exact match, which is 0. Okay, now the next argument is a boolean, which is going to be an exact match too. So we're going to select this and then close parentheses, enter. Okay, wonderful. So now if we change the name John, you can see John Maths, and you can just keep toggling like that between everything, and it changes and it is dynamic. So this is an effective way to use VLOOKUP majorly, but we had to use the match function. I'm going to do a separate video showing you how most times when we use the match we use the index function too, but this is one way to incorporate the match into the VLOOKUP function so that it can be dynamic. Thank you for watching.